Hello everyone, my name is Jerry Lozano and I am an instructor for RxM. And this is our short take on state primitives, making data persistent in a Kubernetes pod. In this module, our job is to explain how Kubernetes abstracts the notion of storage for pods. To start, it's important to understand that Kubernetes has multiple ways to provide persistent storage from pods. There is a need to retain data independent of the lifetime of a pod. One way to do that is to create a persistent volume and have it linked directly to a specific pod. A more flexible way is to build an abstraction. Have pods specify information about the kind of storage that they need. And then to have this concept, this abstraction, known as a PVC, a persistent volume claim, map to a specific persistent volume. And so the PVCs are a way to decouple the needs, the storage needs of a pod from the actual realization of the storage. And that's what we'll end up looking at in this first demonstration. So we start by creating a persistent volume. And I have already created a spec file for my volume. I'm going to create a persistent volume resource with the name called myvol. Notice its capacity will be 100 megabytes, and it will be both readable and writable, but only by one pod at a time. Importantly, this volume is realized. The actual storage is coming from my systems /temp/my content directory. So I've already created this path on this host. You can see what it contains. I've created 3 empty files called File 1, File 2, and File 3 on my host machine. Let's create the volume. kubectl apply -f, and then we'll use the myvol.yaml file. Now, separate from the volume, we want to create a PVC, a persistent volume claim. Here is my spec for the PVC. And you can see that the type of resource being created is a persistent volume claim with the name myPVC. Notice that the access mode, read write once, matches the access mode of the volume that I created above. So at this point, myvol is eligible to realize the persistent volume claim. The other major match must occur on the size of the PVC with the actual persistent volume that we hope is used to realize the claim. So let's separately create the claim. At this point, if we use kube control to get information about our persistent volumes and our persistent volume claims, we should see them both. And most importantly, we're seeing that the persistent volume is bound to a specific claim, the myPVC claim. Now, which pod at this point is using that volume? And the answer is, I have no pods. And I'm going to create a pod whose name is persistent pod. In the container spec, we call out a volume mount. It's based on a volume whose name is persistence. At the same level as the containers list, there is a volumes list. And we call out a specific volume called persistence, which is based on a PVC, a persistent volume claim. with the specific name of my PVC. That's this name up here. We've already created the PVC. So we'll use cube control apply -f my pod. If we list our pods, we will see that Persistent Pod running in GenX is up and running. And it has access to the persistent volume that we just mounted. Let's see if we can access that directory. We can use kubectl to exec a command on the pod called persistent pod. The command that we wish to execute will be ls/hostmount. And there we see the 3 files that are in hostmount. Persistent volume and claim creation are just some of the things you will learn in the stateful primitive module from RxM. On rxm.com, you can build your own custom Kubernetes course with the courseware builder, and you can find the stateful primitive module there under the Kubernetes section. That's our cloud native short take, Stateful Primitives module.